Chris Dixon come up. He is our mentor, and he is going to go ahead and introduce Closet Play Image. So let's give him a round of applause.
Good morning, everybody. How many of you have heard of a little company called Microsoft? So years ago, I had the fortune to meet a young lady who used to work for Melinda, Bill's now wife. She worked for Melinda as an assistant. Her job was to go out and recruit people offshore that would come in and work on special projects for Bill. So they happened to be in the office when Bill was getting ready to go on television with one of the product launches, when Bill used to do that kind of stuff. And they get ready to film, and it's live, and there's no Bill. Probably not surprising any of you in the room, right? Bill's kind of the absent-minded professor, which we know and love. So they go out and they find Bill, and he is disheveled like he always is, hair everywhere, hadn't washed his glasses and everything. So everybody is taking one specific task. This person's combing his hair, this person's cleaning his glasses. Well, when it's all said and done, they looked at him, and he hadn't changed clothes in several days. So somebody goes, Bill, you can't go out there looking like that. You've got to change your clothes. So Bill disappears, and he comes back in putting a sweater on over a sweater. Image is a big deal. Why do you think that would matter if he's going out there making a big announcement and there's a bunch of investors watching?
First impressions.
First impressions. Guess what happens to the stock value depending on how that's received? Do you think if people looked at him and said, hey, he's sick, and that company's growing, that it would make a difference to the share price of the stock? You know, it can make a lot of bad things happen just because the image is not right. And it's really important. We take it for granted, and sometimes we don't understand why. But you know what? If you're out there trying to get investors interested in what you do, it's everything. So it's my honor today to introduce Liz Klebba. Liz is the CEO, the Chief Creative Officer of Closet Play Image. And without further ado, Liz is going to explain why it's really important to have a positive image. Liz.
Thank you, Chris, and good morning. I'm going to try this without the microphone. Can everybody out there hear me?
Yeah.
Okay without it? Thank you. I'm much better without the mic. So I will turn that off. Thank you. I used to teach in the classroom, so shouting out over crowds is okay, but if you're sitting in the way back, if you want to move up, that would be awesome. Thank you. So, as he said, my name is Liz Klebba. My company is Closet Play Image, and I make men more handsome, women more beautiful, and getting dressed more fun. I'm an image consultant. Now, I do want to ask a quick question. Does anybody out there live in the ideal world? That's like a capital T-I-W, the ideal world. Anybody? Nobody? Okay. The reason I ask that is because when I tell people that I'm an image consultant, I often get some very negative and judgmental responses. I hear things like, people don't care what I wear. People pay you for that? And my favorite of all is image shouldn't matter. Well, as we just determined, not one of us here lives in the ideal world. And yes, indeed, image does matter. So I want to clear up, you were talking about first impressions. I would like to clear up a misconception about first impressions. So first impressions aren't judgments. Judgments are made up here in the cerebral cortex. They're made in the thinking part of our brain. And first impressions are made back here in a far more primitive and instinctive part of our brain. We have no control over them. They happen in milliseconds and they are biologically based. For millennia, our life depended upon our first impressions. When somebody comes up and approaches us, we need to know, are they friend or are they foe? Are they going to knock us over the head with a rock and eat us for lunch? Or are they going to share their lunch with us? It was literally a matter of life or death. Now you may say that's not so important now, and for most of us, thank goodness, you're right. And you may say, well, I've got this thinking part of my brain and I can overrule that. And you are also correct. But unfortunately, this is cement. That first impression is cement. You can overcome that with the thinking part of your brain, but research shows us that it takes 11 or more follow-on interactions to mitigate, not erase, a negative first impression. Some research shows up to 20. And how are you going to get 15 to 20 positive interactions when you blow it on the first shot? Particularly in our hyper-visual social media world where almost every first impression we make now is made remotely. So, pardon me, not only is our image important to the first impression that we make, it is vitally important to our self-perception and our performance. It's called enclosed cognition, that's what psychologists call it, and it's really fascinating. There are tons of peer-reviewed, replicated research out there. I would love to share with you over a cup of coffee. It won't fit in 6 minutes here this morning. But it boils down to when we look better, we feel better about ourselves. When we feel better about ourselves, we perform better. And if we throw back to Maslow's hierarchy, we all want and need to feel both confident and authentic. So you may say, that's easy. We've got more choice than ever before. I can sit down and with a click of my mouse, I can get things from all four corners of the world delivered, probably in less than 24 hours. Ironically, the surfeit of choice we have now is actually making things more difficult. In today's world, we have larger wardrobes than ever before. We spend more time, more energy, and more money creating those wardrobes. And we are less satisfied with them, both our wardrobes and our image, than ever before. So how does an image consultant help? Oops, sorry. Back. So how can an image consultant help? So I save my clients time, money, and stress. I help them, we collaborate together to cultivate their personal style. There's that authenticity piece of the equation. We curate their closet, and we create looks they love that love them back, so that they can step out confidently into whatever their day may bring. Because confidence is that quality that makes men more handsome, women more beautiful, and everybody more charismatic. Because confidence is priceless. Thank you. So how does an image consultant help? Well, who hires image consultants? You would think they're for celebrities and very wealthy people. I often hear politicians need image consultants. But you'd be surprised, both men and women hire image consultants. Common thread is they're often in a period of transition, and there's some expendable income. People would think, oh, lots of expendable income? Probably less than you imagine. They're ready for a change, they're ready to step into their personal power, and they're ready to step out and be their authentic selves and show up in this world as themselves. What kind of services do image consultants provide? That depends on the image consultant. So I provide, for my personal clients, wardrobing services and color consulting. Some people think of it as personal branding, particularly for entrepreneurs and solopreneurs, us in here. We are the walking, talking ambassador for our brand, 24/7, 365. You are on your website, you are here at 1 Million Cups on Wednesday morning, you are at Publix on Saturday morning, and at your kids' ball field, or grandkids in my case, ball field on Thursday afternoon. You never know when you're going to have the opportunity to talk to somebody about what you do, why you do it, and why you love it. For businesses, I help them when they realize they want to better manage the impression that their employees are presenting to the rest of the world on their behalf. And I do that by business uniform consulting, different forms of corporate training and workshops. And for fashion retail establishments, I help them train their employees so they can better help their customers. I love what I do. No 2 days are the same. And I love what I do because I get to help smart people and businesses who realize that their image is too valuable to be left to chance. Thank you. Questions?
I have a question. How do you find your clients? Where is it that you're finding most beneficial?
Predominantly word of mouth. Some people find me on social media. I've got an Instagram presence, Facebook, not Twitter because Twitter's not visual, doesn't work for me. It's really got to be visual. So Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest. So, like I said, mostly word of mouth. Some people find me on my blog. Okay, I blog 3 times a week about fashion and style topics.
So with the, I know we talked earlier, you mentioned that, right now your business is predominantly personal styling. In the corporate space though, can you help us understand who in a larger company would be a good point of contact for you, to be able to get your foot in the door?
Yeah, so there's actually two on that score. Thank you for asking that. So one would be human resources departments, because human resources departments don't like to deal with dress issues. They are messy. Not only are they messy, they're awkward and uncomfortable. Oh, I'm getting a bunch of nods over here. People do not want to talk to their employees, or HR doesn't want to talk to their employees about dress issues, particularly if the speaker and the receiver of the information are different genders, because it can come across as sexual harassment. Now, if I come in and do a workshop, then I get to be the heavy, and they can say, well, is that what Mrs. Bubble was talking about, or is that what Liz talked about in the workshop? So I'm a great resource for HR departments. Also, for people, a lot of image consultants do and there's a lot of different names for it, but what people call corporate presence training and corporate presence coaching. And a piece of that is wardrobing. So I often will handle that portion of it. I don't necessarily do public speaking, because as you can tell, I'm not the best public speaker out there. I'm working on it though. But so
HR would be the best.
HR's great, and then anybody who's stuck on the ladder and doesn't see why they're not advancing is usually a good person to take a look at. What's your image saying? Yes, sir.
So like an example, if you could give of like a case study, like, okay, they came to you, they said, I need help with this. What was the length of time from like they're bad, they're good, and then you move on, they've got to do it themselves now?
It depends. If we can, so one of the young men that I have helped with his personal image, he is looking to apply to the officer program. He's enlisted military right now. He's applying to the officer program, and he realizes that he needs to polish up his image. Now, granted, he wears a uniform most of the time, but he also has a presence in the real world, and we need to make that not look like the guy in his cargo shorts and his t-shirts all the time, right? We need to polish up his professional image that's not a work image, if that makes sense. So I've helped him with that. I have a great story that's not my story, but that is a story which is part of why I do what I do now. When I was in college, I worked for a real estate company that had an office manager, and she was amazing. And you have to realize this is back when cell phones were the size of bricks. Yeah, we had walkie-talkies on the site. This is the 1980s. We used walkie-talkies to communicate around the site. And the site was going to be opened it was in the process of opening. Luxury retail, restaurants, no chains, fabulous site. Apartments, condominiums, you name it. It was beautiful. She was amazing. I'll call her Lena. She knew every contractor. She knew their phone number. She knew their finishing date. She knew the square footage of their space. She knew who their general contractor was and how to get him on the phone. She knew the general contractor's wives and kids and dogs. I mean, she was meritorious. She was complete. But she dressed like a 12-year-old. She worked in the back office. Nobody saw her with the contractors. Well, her boss realized that she was an amazing asset to the company and that he wanted her to be able to grow. So he sent her on a Friday afternoon without telling anybody. He said, you've got this opportunity. I'm going to send you to Dayton's, which was back in Minneapolis, Dayton Hudson. You're going to meet with a personal stylist. You've got an appointment at the salon. And if you want this, I've paid for it all. You're covered, you're cleared. And come back on Monday morning. If you don't want to do it, that's fine too. You can just stay where you are. But I want to invest in you. She came back Monday morning. She walked in that office. She walked through the door. People stopped her. People were trying to stop her on her way to her office because they didn't recognize who she was. She looked like herself, but all grown up. And she took the world by storm. About 2 years later, she was the head of that company. Because the head left, and she was running the show. And that's why I do what I do, because we get in our own way. Because we don't always understand the message we're sending. Because clothing is a language. What did you mean to say when you got dressed this morning? Yes, ma'am.
Do you ever go go to universities. My son is applying for jobs, and
I would love that. That would be a fabulous, yeah, that would be great. I would love that.
he has no clue.
Yeah, they don't. And, you know, we're talking about a generation, and 2 generations that have grown up in tennis shoes. And all of a sudden, it's like, you can't always wear tennis shoes everywhere you want. And you may create a uniform for yourself, and that's fabulous, but just because you're a tech guy doesn't mean you have to wear black from head to toe and be covered in tattoos. Be the tech guy who stands out. Be the whatever that isn't like all the rest, and you will be remembered. Yes?
So you come in and like do personality profiles to try to get people's heads and then determine like path after that?
Yeah, so I will sit down, for example, with a personal client. We will talk about their personality, their values. We'll talk about their lifestyle, their budget, because I am a huge budget nerd. People think that I want people to spend a lot of money, and I don't. And then we will create a look that is for them, because we want it to reflect who they are. We want it to be authentic and still appropriate for the situation in which they work and live. Make sense? Yes, sir.
Do you charge by the hour or do you charge by the case?
Depends on the service. So if you look on my website, their services have different fees. They are bundled, but then some things are charged by the hour. Business services are generally charged by the hour. Personal services by the service itself. There was another hand up over this way. Right?
Two more questions.
Two more questions. Okay?
So Liz, first I want to say, because you say you don't, Liz is my classmate, so I want to take one and say, I'm so proud of you, because you say you don't public speak. You're doing a fabulous job. I'm sure others will attest to that. But my question is, because image is such a personal issue, and especially as an HR professional, so I totally agree with you. Those are always a difficult conversation. But even as we have colleagues and friends that we know that could use some assistance, and even the ones, because your ideal client is those that already know that they do, so they come seeking your services, but those ones that we would recommend. How do you have that conversation? Because I think of the ones that where they'll ask you, they say, well, which one looks better? You tell them which one looks better, and then they go with the other one. So how do you get those, what is your technique for having that kind of easy kind of recommendation or suggestion, if you will, that your image could use a professional?
That's the $1 million question, isn't it? That's a matter of finesse and how well you know the person.
Of course.
So, for example, pardon? What's my way? I don't tell people they need me. I do not do that because that comes across as really negative. But if someone else asks for my advice, you know, we'll be out shopping or we're someplace, somebody said, you know, people ask other people even though they don't know them, well, do you like this shirt or what do you think? I say, well, you know, it's really funny, I'm a stylist, but I actually usually tell people who know me, please put my number in your phone. And if somebody asks you their advice, say, you know what? I have a personal stylist. Here's her number. Would you like to talk to her? I can call her right now. You can connect us on text message. You can connect us on Instagram Messenger. I've got, you can even just direct them to my blog, I would say. Does that help?
The last question we always ask as an entity is what can we do here in the community to help you go to the next level?
Right. So I've actually got kind of 3 asks. One is I'd like to meet some people from the Augusta Film office. So if anybody here's from the Augusta Film office, knock me over on your way out the door. Let HR departments know when you run into anybody who says, or huffs or says anything, God, he dresses so-and-so or my employees dress so. Let them know this resource is out here, please. I appreciate that. And last but not least, I would love to get together with any and all of you for coffee, particularly to talk more about that research, because it's amazing and fascinating. Thank you.